All right, third grade, it is reading time. So take out on the bright side, page 98. Page 98 on the bright side. And I just want you to look, because this has got, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this one with you as well, is it's got a lot of different names that we're going to go through the proper pronunciation, because they can be a little bit tricky. So look at the words to watch for first. And the first word is Gita. Okay, can you say that? Gita. Good. So the first name is Gita, and then the next one is Debindra Das. Debindra Das. Okay, so that's how that name goes. Then the next word is Maina. Maina. The last name that you see there is Nidu. Okay, the emphasis goes on the end, Nidu. Okay, and then Bangladesh is a country in Asia, Bangladesh. So I want you to practice, because I do want you to read through this so you can kind of practice those words. But Gita, Debindra Das, Maina, Nidu, and Bangladesh. So one of the things that we're going to do in this story is our dig deeper. Look for descriptions of the main character in this next story. Notice sayings, feelings, actions, and changes in the character from beginning to end. Use your senses to discover the vivid details that describe the story's setting. So, when new people come to the little village where Gita and her family live, big changes happen. How will these changes affect Gita and her family? Gita, Girl of Bangladesh, which is adapted from Jeannie Lockerbie Stevenson. Okay. In a house made of bamboo with a grass roof and mud floor lived a girl named Gita and her family. They lived in a small village on the edge of the jungle in Bangladesh. One day, across the river from the village, some people were building a house. Debindra Das, Gita's father, wondered who they were. Climbing into a small boat, Debindra rowed himself across the river. He discovered that the new people were going to stay and they would need help washing their clothes and keeping their house clean. Every morning, Debindra rowed across the river and went to work. He watched and listened to what went on among these new people. All right, before we go on, describe the place where Gita and her family live. So that's the setting, remember? That helps us to know. So right away, we know, right, that Gita and her family live in a bamboo house with a mud floor and grass roof. They live in a village and on the edge of a jungle in Bangladesh. All of that is the setting that helps us to know where we're talking about. And who is Debindra Das? That's right, it's Gita's father. So he watched and listened to what went on among these new people. They did not have statues or pictures of gods on the walls. They did not have a shelf where sacrifices were made to keep the gods happy. But many times these strange people bowed their heads and talked out loud to their God. And notice that God is capital G. Debindra learned that these people had come from a faraway country to tell people in Bangladesh about the God whom they loved and worshipped. This God created the world and all the beautiful things in it. Then he made people because he wanted someone to love him. Even though people did bad things and did not love God, God still loved them. Debindra couldn't understand it all, but he kept listening. This God was so different from his own gods. One day, Debindra heard that the missionaries were leaving. Some were sick. Some had to return to their own families, and some were going to live in the city. Gita's father wondered how he would learn more about the Lord Jesus after the missionaries left. Why were the missionaries leaving? Right, some were sick, some had to return back to their families, and some were moving into the city. Then one of the missionaries came to him and said, Debindra, I will need help in my house in the city. Would you and your family come and live in the city too? Would he? Of course he would. This was the most exciting thing that had ever happened. Quickly, he rowed back across the river to tell his family the good news. At last, the missionaries and Debindra's family were ready. They climbed into long, low dugout canoes for the long journey down the river. Monkeys chattered in the trees. Parrots and mynah birds called to each other. The children in the boat played together and slept. All too soon, the peaceful part of the trip was over. Everyone left the canoes and climbed into a huge, dirty, smelly bus. The bus rattled and swayed and sputtered as it dodged cows and goats and bicycles and a few cars on the road. Finally, the group reached another river. But what was that monster on the other side of the river? Actually, the monster was a train, but Gita and her family had never seen a train. It was as noisy and smelly as the bus. Finally, the steam monster chugged into the station and bumped to a stop. And that's where we're going to stop for today. But before we are done completely, what good news did the missionaries give to Bindra? They asked him to come and live with them in the city, right? Describe the setting along the river. Remember, think of what you could see or hear. Yes, so monkeys chattering, what is that? Your sense of hearing, that's what you could hear. Parrots and mynah birds calling to each other, right? And then we go to what happened afterwards. They get on the bus. So it's huge, dirty, smelly, so sense of smell, sense of sight, right? The bus rattled and swayed. It's what they felt as it sputtered, as it dodged cows and goats. So all of that is what you would underline for the senses that they could see, feel, hear, smell. Then what about after the bus, the train? Again, it was noisy and smelly. The steam monster chugged into the station and bumped to a stop. Those are things that you could heard, could be smelled, all of that. So thinking that through. Why did Gita and her family think the train was a monster? Right, they had never seen anything like that before, so that was completely new to them. Well, we'll find out what else happens to Gita and her family tomorrow as we read a little bit more about them. All right, we will get ready to go on to our next subject, so be ready. Hope you have a good time reading this story. Don't read anymore. Stick with where we are and then come back tomorrow. We'll find out some more. See you soon.